Alrighty, everybody. So in this video, we are going to be introducing the idea of elimination, which is another algebraic way to solve a system of equations. So in elimination, what we're going to do is we're going to write the equations so like terms are stacked, so they're aligned right on top of each other, which means we're going to be writing our equations in standard form. And remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So that's how we're going to write a lot of these equations from here on out. So once our equations are stacked, we have to make sure we have opposite coefficients for one of the variables. So remember, an opposite coefficient, the coefficient are the numbers in front of the variables. So opposite, if one's positive, the other one needs to be negative. You'll see what that looks like in a problem. Okay, if you don't have opposite coefficients, then you need to manipulate one or both equations to get those opposite coefficients. And we are going to be manipulating our equations by multiplying. So we will introduce that in this video, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth into that concept in the next video. Okay? Once we get opposite coefficients, we are going to add the equations together, which is going to eliminate, that's why it's called elimination, eliminate one variable. Then we're going to solve the equation, and that'll give us the value of one of my variables. And then it's just like substitution. We're going to substitute that back in. We're going to substitute the value of that variable we found into either equation to solve for the other variable. And then last but not least, we are going to write that solution as an ordered pair. So those are all the steps for elimination, which at first glance seems really confusing. Once we throw it to a problem and we go through those steps, that should make a little bit more sense. So let's start with a simple problem like this one. We got our system 4x plus 6y equals 32 and 3x minus 6y equals 3. So what we want to do is we want to stack our equations right on top of each other. So we got 4x plus 6y equals 32, and then we have 3x minus 6y equals 3. So what you'll notice in this one is that the y's, the coefficients, are opposite of each other, right? In the first equation, it's 6y. In the second equation, it's negative 6y. So the easiest variable to eliminate here is going to be your y's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these equations together. So I'm going to get 4x plus 3x, which is 7x. I will get 6y minus 6y. So the y's are going to become eliminated. Those are going to go away. I drop my equal sign. And then I got 32 plus 3, which is 35. So now I'm going to solve this equation. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. So x is going to equal 5. Now what I need to do is I need to take that 5 and I need to plug it back into either of my equations to solve for y. So if I do the first equation, I got 4x, but instead of x, I'm going to plug in 5 plus 6y equals 32. Well, 4 times 5, that's 20, so 20 plus 6y equals 32. Subtract 20 from both sides, so I get 6y equals 12, or y equals 2. Okay, so the ordered pair solution here is 5, 2. All right, let's say you wanted, just so you guys can see, if I plugged it into the other equation instead, if I plugged in x into 3x minus 6y equals 3, so that's going to be 3 times 5 minus 6y equals 3. 3 times 5 is 15. So I got 15 minus 6y equals 3. Subtract 15 from both sides. I'll get negative 6y equals negative 12. If I divide both sides by negative 6, I'll get y equals 2. Doesn't matter which equation you plug x equals 5 back into, you're going to get out a y value of 2. So the solution, the ordered pair, where these two lines intersect, is 5, 2. All right, so I've got a practice problem for you. Go ahead and try that out, eliminating a variable. All right, so there is the work for your practice problem. You should get a solution of 0, negative 1. And then below those problems in the black ink, you remember, check your answer. So take that solution, plug it back into both of your equations and make sure it works. If it doesn't work, you did something wrong. So you have the power to make sure that you get these problems right. Don't be lazy. Just do it. Do it in your calculator or do it quickly on paper. Just make sure you get the right solution. Okay, so that is just a one-step elimination problem because a variable is already ready to be eliminated because you have opposite coefficients. Well, you're not always going to have opposite coefficients, and so sometimes you're going to need to manipulate your system. So, for example, like if in B, I get 2x plus 5y equals 6, and I get 9y plus 2x equals 22. Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to rewrite this system so that the variables are stacked. X's, and then the y's, then the equals, and then the constants, those numbers. All right, so now you'll notice the coefficient on both of the x's is 2. So they're both positive, though. I need them to be opposite coefficients. So what I need to do is I'm actually going to multiply the bottom equation, the entire equation, by negative 1. So the top equation stays 2x plus 5y equals 6. The bottom equation, though, is going to become, well, what do I got to do? I got to distribute that negative to everything. So if I distribute that negative, it's going to be negative 2x minus 9y equals negative 22. Now I have opposite coefficients. I have opposite coefficients right here on the x term. So if I were to add these two equations together, the x's would become eliminated. I would have 5y minus 9y, which would give me negative 4y, equals 6 minus 22. Well, that's going to give me negative 16. I divide both sides by negative 4. Y is going to equal 4. So in my solution, I know my y coordinate is going to be 4. Now I just need to pick one of my equations to plug back in. I will pick the first one. So I got 2x plus 5y. Instead of y, I'm going to substitute in 4. Equals 6. So I got 2x plus 20 equals 6. So I get 2x equals negative 14. Nope. Yes, 2x equals negative 14. So x equals negative 7. All right, just to make sure, I'm going to plug it back into my second equation. So 9 times y plus 2 times negative 7 equals 22. 36 minus 14 equals 22. That does check out, so I know that my answer is correct. All right, so that's how we manipulate an equation. We are going to multiply one of the equations by a number. And so in this one, all we need to do is multiply the equation by a negative 1 in order to get my opposite coefficients. So go ahead and try the practice problem, and then that'll wrap up this video. Alrighty, so you can check your work there. Multiply the bottom equation by a negative 1, distribute it, and then eliminate the y, solve for the x, plug the x back in to solve for the y. You should get a solution of 2, negative 6. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video. It's just going to be an introduction on elimination. In the next video, we'll deal with some more complicated types of systems where we have to manipulate both of the equations. before we can actually add them together and eliminate a variable. So stay tuned for that next video. Make sure to ask questions if you got it. As always, be safe, be good. I'll see you when I see you.